Ready? Okay, everybody. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make every decision fair-minded and in the best interest for all its residents. Amen.
Roll call vote.
Councilperson Lindsay Jackson.
Yes.
Councilperson Thomas Nardi.
Here.
Councilperson Bill Axelrod.
Here.
Councilperson Anthony Baxter.
Here.
And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Present. Our first item tonight is a presentation regarding our townwide reassessment by Tyler Technologies and our consultant and monitor, Edie McCarthy. Edie, I'll just give you the floor right away and you can introduce the topic, why we're doing it, how it's being done, and Tyler can pick up at the appropriate time. And I think for this, I think the council should take the front row seat so we can see the presentation ourselves. I believe there is a video and slides. Maybe if we're lucky, cartoons.
Thank you. I'm going to start while everybody's getting settled in. So my name is Edie McCarthy, and I am the monitor for the 2020 Town of Rye Reassessment Project. I'd like to just take a second and introduce your team, our team. John Wollam. He is from New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, Office of Real Property Tax Services, Regional Director of the Southern Region. Say that 10 times fast. Again, I'm Edie McCarthy, and I am the project monitor. We have Salim Sirda, over these Tyler Technologies project supervisor. Steve Bessio, he's another project supervisor. Rich Nicolosi, Tyler Technologies crew chief. And stand up and share everybody your best.
Yes, lovely.
We'll talk about that as we go through the project, but that's what our inspectors will be wearing when they're out in the field. You can't miss them.
Also, we have members of our assessment task force here.
I'm not finished. Denise Knauer is our town assessor. From the Rye Citizens Task Force on Assessment, Dan Tartaglia. Richard Cuddy's not here. Joan Feinstein, Randy Rabinowitz. Oh, I'm sorry. And Joe. Okay. Now I'm finished with the introductions. Did I miss anybody? Okay, good. So I just wanted to take a minute of your time before we get into the details of the project and talk about a little bit of the history and why we're here and what we're doing. So first, back in 2004, we had done a townwide reassessment for the first time in decades. After the 2004 reassessment, Town of Rye did another full reassessment in 2011 and now 2020. Prior to the first reval in 2004, the Town of Rye was assessing properties at 2.37%. It's kind of hard to understand that. You'd have to take your assessment and make it divided by the 2.37%. It was kind of confusing. So after the full reassessment in 2004, the town decided to value the properties at 100% of market value. So when you get your tax bills and you look at your tax bill and you see your assessment, that is supposedly the assessor's opinion of your current market value. What does that mean? Current market value and 100% of market value means that is the assessor's opinion as to what you can sell your property for in the current market. The Town of Rye has maintained that 100% of market value since 2004. It's highly recommended by New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services, Department of Taxation and Finance, and the IAAO, which is the International Association of Assessing Officers. They have standards, procedures, rules, and regulations regarding reassessment projects, and they highly recommend that municipalities reassess on a cyclical basis. That could mean 1-year cycle, 5-year cycle, 10-year cycle. So right now we are at the end of our 2011, that cycle. So we're working on our 2020 reassessment. Why are we doing this? Primarily, the reason why municipalities do reassessments is to maintain transparency. I explained that. You look at your tax bill, you see 100% value, you understand it. It's transparent. Stability in budgeting. The total assessed value for the taxing jurisdictions are more stable when you have current market values. They are an understatement to say they're defensible, but they are much more defensible when they're current as opposed to decades of not doing anything. But most important, a current value and a reassessment with everybody has the current values gives an equitable distribution of the property tax burden for all of us. I made a comment about the budgeting and the stability of the budgeting, and when I said that, I meant town, county, school, village, special districts, all in one. As we're doing this project of the reassessment for the town entire, that is going to include Rye, Portchester, and Mamaroneck. All properties, all real properties. Vacant land, residential, commercial, utilities, industrial. So where are we now? Every year since, correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, that since 2004, taxpayers have been getting an assessment change notice the first week in June. That notice recognizes your prior assessment, your current assessment, or your new assessment, and any net change. Even if you might, hopefully some of you, have received these letters that says your prior assessment is X, your new assessment is X, and your net change is 0. So all the letters go out to let you know what's happening. The reason for that is in the interim years of the revaluations between 2004, 2011, and now 2020, the interim years, 2005 to 2010, 2012 to 2019, we have done what is called a non-reappraisal reassessment. What does that mean in English? That means in English that we have reassessed all of the properties based on building permits, and we have tested the market and determined market trends for the particular neighborhoods in the town. Rye may have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 neighborhoods, different valuations is what we're talking about. So we've trended, we've determined the trends based on sales, based on other information that we've been able to extract from the market, and we've determined these market trends, which are then applied to your assessed values. So sometimes you might receive a letter that is showing a 2% increase. That's a market trend increase. That's what you're seeing. So that's what we've been doing. In June 1st of 2019, you will receive the same letter. And it's basically either you've done something to your property, so your assessment has changed, or you are getting an assessment change notice because of a market trend. The procedure for June 1, 2019 will be no different than it has been for the past 8 years. June 1 of 2020, you will receive the same letter, but that letter will identify if there's been any market change on your property, including any valuation changes. So that is what we're working on right now that will be completed on June 1st of 2020. I wanted to touch base one more minute. Sorry, I talk a lot. Did you notice that? On what's going to happen as we go through this process. Please pay attention to the taxpayers that are in the room and anybody that's going to be watching this on TV. You need to pay attention to these dates. The valuation date for the 2020 townwide reassessment is July 1, 2019. That means that we are putting a value on your property as of June 1, 2020, based on a valuation date of July 1, 2019. Whatever your property was worth on July 1st of 2019 will be your June 1st, 2020 assessment. A little bit confusing. That will be on the website, and a clarification will be on the website as well. Everything we're saying tonight will be on the Town of Rye's Reassessment webpage. I believe it's on the front page of our homepage. You just click on that button and explanations in progress.
There's a big banner across the top.
There's a big banner across the top that says Townwide Reassessment. Okay. So some other dates I just wanted to recognize for you. We're going through this process, and through the process, as I showed you with the vest, our field crew is out, their boots on the ground. They're already started doing inspections. You'll be notified throughout the process of where they're going to be located, what neighborhoods, and you'll see them in their yellow vests. So you need to understand that July 1 of 2019 is the valuation date. Your new values will come out June 1st of 2020. The informal appeals process, sorry, back up a second. The informal appeals process will start March 1st, 2020. Informal meaning that if you agree or don't agree with the assessment, you have the right to come in and present your case to Tyler Technologies. The appeals process that has been in place in the Town of Rye forever is the June 1st to the third Tuesday in June. That is not changing. That becomes the formal process. So we're going to go now, and I ask, and I'm going to say it at this meeting, and I'm going to say it at all the other public meetings that we have, that we will be holding throughout this process. It is imperative that taxpayers pay attention to this. You are going to be receiving letters, you're going to be receiving notifications, emails, web pages, whatever there is going on, you will be fully notified of our progress. Taxpayers, please pay attention to the dates. This is as much your responsibility as it is mine, as it is the assessors, and as it is Tyler Technologies. We want this project to be a success, and without our property owners, it won't be. We need your input, and we need you to pay attention when Tyler Technologies sends you notification of the data that they collected on your property, data being bedroom count, bathroom count, condition of your house. When they send you that and ask you to respond if it's correct or not, we need you to respond, please. So that's it for me for tonight. We are going to show you, I think it's about a 10-minute video, and then there will be about a 5 or 6 minute PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll open the floor for any questions. Thank you. Steve? Oh, we're gonna do the video first. Celine?
No matter where we live, there are some services we don't want to live without. Safe neighborhoods, quality education for our children, snow removal, and trash collection. How can we be sure we are each paying our fair share for these services? From the 18th century until today, American communities have depended on property taxes as one of the most stable ways of supporting local services. However, without a reassessment project, two houses that sell for different amounts could have identical assessments. Perhaps one owner made improvements that weren't recorded with the assessor's office, creating inequities in the amount of taxes paid. The reassessment project helps to ensure that property taxes are being distributed fairly. Have you ever been out to dinner with a group of people and you were expected to split the check even though you had salad and the others ate steak? It just doesn't seem fair. Inequities develop over the years from such things as higher construction costs, changes in the real estate market, or physical improvements to buildings. Whether real estate values are going up or down, it is important for assessors to capture the value as of a point in time. Even if your assessor processes exemptions, such as veterans and STAR, the starting point should be an accurate, fair market value. To be sure all property is valued uniformly, the municipality, under direction of the assessor, conducts a reassessment, also known as a revaluation. to be sure that everyone pays his or her fair share, no more, no less. Because of the need to capture thousands of pieces of information in a short time, local governments across the U.S. have hired Tyler Technologies to reassess properties accurately, fairly, and in a timely manner. Tyler is the country's oldest and largest mass appraisal firm. Through its appraisal services business, founded in 1938, it has successfully completed programs in 46 states and conducted more than 3,000 major projects, including 23 state capitals and appraisals of more than 30 million parcels. In addition to appraising homes and farm properties, Tyler is highly experienced in placing values on historical homes and business properties, such as shopping malls and industrial parks. Tyler follows time-tested procedures for mass appraisal. Details of the process may change according to local needs and legislation. However, there is a short list of typical steps in a reassessment project, starting with data collection, data mailers, and photography in the first step, followed by market research, review, and then notices to property owners. Since a reassessment has not been conducted in decades, Tyler will visit and measure each building and also perform an interior inspection. The first person you may see in your neighborhood is a data collector. This is a person who is trained to gather information about each property. As the data collector performs each interior inspection, they will capture data, such as number of rooms, type of heating and cooling, and other features. The data collector will not record information on your furniture, decorations, or other personal items. Those do not affect the value of your property. The entire inspection will be done in just 15 to 20 minutes in a typical dwelling, and the information is then given to Tyler's appraisers. The data collector inspects and measures the exterior of any buildings on the property. Because of the importance of collecting as much information as possible, the data collector will make an initial attempt between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and a second attempt after 5 p.m. or on Saturday if needed. If you're not home during either visit, you will receive a postcard in the mail. The message on the postcard will advise that there was a visit and request that you make an appointment for an interior inspection. You may receive an additional visit from a supervisor or project monitor who will make sure that the information listed by the data collector is correct. This is just one of many steps in our extensive quality control process. Information for business and industrial properties is collected in much the same way. Tyler's commercial data collectors gather information on the physical characteristics of each property, as well as income and expense figures for those properties that generate income. Just as your world has changed with new telephone and computer technologies, the business of property appraisal has improved technology for capturing and reviewing property information. To support data collection efforts, specialists will use high-resolution street-level imaging and aerial photography to quality control the data collected. Clear, high-resolution photos will help capture all attributes that affect a property's value, and each image is provided with unique property identifiers. Advanced technology allows appraisers to take the data collected and other office records into your neighborhood to compare property record cards, verify addresses, analyze property characteristics, and make notes of any discrepancies. Back in the office, support staff enters data collected and verifies its completeness and accuracy. Data collection is only one piece of a much larger effort. What happens to all of this information? Tyler researches local land values and looks at how land is being used. They also verify recent real estate sales. Tyler appraisers analyze the market and group properties according to similarities or neighborhoods. Remember, location, location, location. The biggest influence on the value of a property. All of this information is added to the computer database and is used when values are applied to each property. The information is also compared to sales of similar properties in order to assure that the assessments are representative of fair market value. Finally, valuation experts interpret market conditions, which are derived from property sales, and consider their predicted effect on the value of your property. Before beginning to process values, Tyler's appraisers go back into the field to review values. The appraisers make sure there are no discrepancies between what they see and the information on file. Tyler uses several levels of quality control. In addition to checking and rechecking, supervisors visit the project office to review and analyze all aspects of the work, including data collection and valuation procedures, reports, schedules, and contract compliance. After all the information has been collected and researched, you'll receive an assessment disclosure notice in the mail, which compares your old and new tax responsibility. When you see the new value, ask yourself, is this about the price I would sell my property for? If it is not, you may wish to make an appointment to discuss your concerns. To prepare for your meeting, gather information to show why you feel the assigned value may be incorrect. Information such as interior and exterior photos, recent appraisals, sales listings for similar properties in your neighborhood, construction or repair estimates from a licensed contractor. Any information that would affect the value of your property will be helpful when addressing your concerns. The big question everyone wants to know is, will my taxes go up? You won't know how the reassessment will affect the property tax until each levying body, such as school boards, municipalities, or the county, sets its next tax levy and tax rates, which are calculated based on the new values for all of the properties within its boundaries. Some people assume that all tax bills will increase after a reassessment. This is not the case. Some will increase and others will decrease. No additional revenues are collected because of a reassessment. They are simply redistributed more fairly. Remember the restaurant example? If you order a salad, your bill should be based on a salad, even though you may have spent years only paying for a steak. As you can see, reassessment is a complex process. Gathering information from thousands of residences, businesses, and other types of properties is a major undertaking. Years of experience and expertise will ensure that similar properties will have similar assessments as a result of the reassessment. In the end, you can be sure that Tyler Technologies and your local assessors, along with your help, are doing everything they can to see that you and your neighbor each will be paying a fair share of property tax. No more, no less. Your participation in the process is critical to the success of this project.
Before we go to the slideshow, I think it's important to point out that this was a generic account of the typical appraisal project that we undertake across the country. But there's some details that are a little different here, or that don't apply here, and I want to point those out to you. There are no interior inspections for properties, except for those properties that have sold will request interior inspections, or those that are requested by the homeowner. Other than that, data collectors are just going to properties that have been identified by the verification program that was indicated in the video. That is, we're comparing the existing sketch to the latest aerial photo of the improvements on the property. Any discrepancy is flagged. Those properties will be notified for an inspection. So we've got sales, properties that are requested for inspection by homeowners, or those properties that have had major changes since the last, physical changes since the last revaluation. Those properties will be notified. Another thing that was mentioned in the film, that a second attempt to visit the property will be made. That's not the case here. There's only one attempt during normal daily working hours. But at some point, all property owners will receive a property description report wherein the details that we have on your property are reported to you. And as Edie indicated, we want you to pay attention to that. You're to review that information, return it whether it's correct or not, make whatever corrections are necessary. And if major discrepancies occur, we'll probably contact you because you're asked to supply your phone number and your name and a signature on that document. We're not there yet. We're not there. It also indicated that decades have passed since the last revaluation. The last time a revaluation was done here was 2011, so it really hasn't been decades. It's close to a decade though, isn't it? And I think those were the three major things that were pointed out in the film that don't pertain here. So we'll just reprise what you saw on the film. The reassessment goals, fairness, synonymous with equity. That is, similar properties should have similar values and therefore, at least at a base level, pay similar taxes. Transparency is everything that we do is in view of the public. We're being monitored by the monitor, Edie McCarthy, the assessor. The townspeople are engaged in this process because we're constantly in touch with them. As Edie indicated, either by email or by letter, by data mailer, by pre-list letter for those properties that have been identified as those that we need to revisit, and by the impact notice, the value notice that's sent to you. So everything that we do is above board. That's really what transparency here means. Reassessment fears that you're going to pay more taxes. Taxes are really determined by budgets. So the level of taxation is the total of all of the budgets that taxable real property has to fund, has to pay for. That government will spend more. Reassessments are revenue neutral. When those budgets are determined, it's the police department says, look, we need this much money to operate. Or the highway department, we need this much money to operate. The school develops its budget, but it's not based on assessed value. All the assessor does is really allocate shares. What's my share of this burden imposed by these levies that will discover unknown improvements? Well, it shouldn't be a fear. That's what we do in data collection, and that's what this Verify program is intended to do. And it's unlikely that there would be many of these if you have an active building department that communicates with the assessor. Embarrassment by messy house, since we're not doing interior inspections except for those properties that have sold or for those properties that request it, it's irrelevant to us. Even if we go into a messy house, it's not the kind of thing that we're paying attention to. This is basically a quantitative approach. How many bedrooms, how many square feet, whether or not you have a garage, the age, the condition of your property. And being away when inspections occur, well, all of the data collectors have identification. I think their identification is on record with the police department. And those properties that are going to be visited are properties that will be notified ahead of time to that effect. So there shouldn't be any surprises there. And if you aren't at home, the data collector is going to measure the improvements on the property. And if it's some concern to you, the property owner can always contact the assessor's office or the project office and request that someone come back. The phases of the reassessment, to reprise these again, data collection to occur between February 2009, I believe they've already started, and to end by the end of June 2019. Data analysis, this is the analysis of the data for those properties that have sold primarily. This is how we determined or model market behavior. It allows us to determine how properties or sales are to be adjusted for any given subject property. And also the analysis of income and expense information for commercial properties, because I think we're going to mail income and expense requests for all commercial properties. And that's how we develop our commercial models, our rent expense, vacancy expense. For those properties that have sold, and if we have income data for them, we can develop a capitalization rate. That's between August 2019 and September 2019. And then valuation review and informal meetings between December 2019 and March 2020. Valuation review is actually going into the field with evaluation documents, looking at every property. For every residential property, the reviewer is looking at a comparable valuation sheet. The 5 sales that were chosen for the subject property, the imputed value for the subject, and determining whether that's a representative value, whether the comparables are good, whether the data looks correct, and then validating that value. For commercial properties, they're done a little differently. Most of them are based on the income method. So data collection consists in this pre-data collection mailing that I told you about, and that's only to those select properties that have been identified. Exterior measurements, you saw on the film, data collectors, that's what they're doing. They're measuring all of the improvements, recording those or that information on the property record card. Interior verification only for sales, again, or those properties that request the interior inspection. And then the property description report, or the data mailer, which is part of the quality control effort. Since we're not going in houses and we're using the existing information that's on the record, that's the information that the homeowner is going to receive. They've got to verify that information for us, make whatever corrections are necessary, return it to us, we make corrections to the file, and hopefully we've improved the quality of the data after having gone through this process. This is the sample of the pre-inspection letter that will be mailed to all of those selected properties. I don't know if we have copies here, and I don't know that you can read that, but dates for different, well, the timeline for the project, the reassessment timeline, there you see on the left, lower left-hand corner. A brief explanation of the reassessment process. And on the back, frequently asked questions. And of course, there's a phone number that you can call the Tyler office if you have any specific questions or need clarification on any one of these items that's covered here. This is the property description report. This is the format for it. Building style, wall material, year built, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, that type of thing. This is the document that you're asked to verify the information for and return correct or not. So we discussed data analysis, that's sales validation analysis, income and expense evaluation. We're taking the data for those properties that sold and determining what contribution these data elements make to sales price on average, to develop a model. I don't know if it's
worth getting into, the models that we use and how we use them. But you'll have an opportunity to see that if you come in for an informal hearing. And for income and expense evaluation, again, that's dependent on what kind of response we get from commercial property owners. And in the absence of getting an adequate response, the state Department of Real Property Services does have a database, and there's also published information asking rents in the newspaper, websites. We get our information from wherever we can get it. Ideally, it's important that we get that information from the commercial property owners, but historically, in New York, the responses haven't been that great. They feel that it's sort of intrusive. Nobody wants to give up the kind of information. Neighborhood delineation, that was touched on in the video. It's identifying geographic areas at the simplest level where similar properties sell for similar dollars. Valuation modeling, I did touch on that. Within that neighborhood, you're developing a model, or you may develop a global model for the entire municipality and differentiate the neighborhoods by site value, by location, which is captured in land value. Data analysis, well, we're looking at median sale price because part of the testing that we do is comparing the value, the assessed value, the value that we are trying to determine to sale price, to see how closely we're modeling actual sales. And that's the importance of median sale price. Median is the best measure of central tendency that we can use. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into the modeling than just median sale price. And of course, there's the final review where we're in the field, we're verifying the data, we're validating the value or overriding it, as the case may be. And then upon notification, the impact notice that tells you what your prior value was, what your prior taxes were based on that value, what your new value is, and what you would have paid in taxes had the new value been in place in the prior budget year. You schedule an informal meeting. So having done the final valuation review and having documented all of the information that goes into this process, statistical testing being a big part of that, eventually that documentation is part of the transparency that I discussed earlier, that will be available after the process is over for anyone to review. Of course, the informal meetings are as a result of the impact notice. You come in for a meeting, it's an exchange of information with the hearing officer. If you disagree with the value, if you want to see how we arrived at the value, we review those documents, we make a decision. Everyone who comes in for an informal hearing then is re-notified as to whether they've got a value change or not. And of course, if you're not satisfied with the result of the informal meeting, then you grieve the formal process. And of course, this is just the dates that Edie gave to you. Formal grievances between June 1 and June 16, 2020. Grievance day is June 16, 2020. So hopefully we have a quality data collection. That is, we've got good, accurate information, a detailed analysis and modeling, accurate valuation, review, and hearings, and we've achieved fairness, equity, and we've been transparent in the process. These are some examples of recent revaluations that we've had in New York. see for yourself. Of course, the Town of Rye and Beckman, the Town of Rye are not complete. They're in the process right now. Questions?
While everybody's getting settled, I just wanted to wrap it up. The other part of the video for security purposes, where it said that we were going to leave tags, that we were trying to notify you for an inspection. We are not leaving those tags like you have in a hotel room, please do not disturb. We're not doing that for security purposes. We will attempt to cold call, which is knocking on your door the first time and the second time. And then again, like Steve said, just call the town and you can make an appointment if you want an inspection. As far as the data mailers are concerned for residential property owners, they will be the inventory, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. Please pay attention to that. Those data mailers should be in the mail to you sometime towards the end of the third quarter of this year. Commercial data mailers will be mailed out, and we are requesting income and expense information. And as Steve said, if it is not supplied by commercial property owners, we would have to go to the market and get that through surveys, through other resources. On March 1st, give or take a day or two, either side, we will be mailing out your new values, at which point, please pay attention to that. And if they are correct, that's fine. If you feel that they are not, then please contact Tyler Technologies Project Office, and you can make an appointment to discuss it with them informally. I mentioned earlier that July 1 of 2019 is the valuation date. You can get yourself prepared for the final conclusions of the 2020 townwide reassessment by either you can have an appraisal done on your property to confirm that Tyler's assessment is correct. You can contact, realtors are going to kill me, but you can contact a realtor and get a CMA. CMA stands for Current Market Analysis. Realtors will give you an indication as to what the value is, but please make sure that you tell them the valuation date is July 1, 2019. As far as this presentation tonight and the video and the PowerPoint, all three of them should be up on the Town of Rye's reassessment website, I'm hoping by Friday. So, thank you.
Maybe I have a question. It might not be a question for you, but for Steve. You said that you're not going to do interior inspections except when there are sales or improvements. I'm curious as to why you do it when there are sales, because you may have had a sale in 2012. Of what relevance is it in 2019?
Well, typically we use sales of the...
Steve.
Oh, you're going to do that?
No, you're going to
Well, of course, sales are the basis for valuation.
Why, understand, but why are you going to look in the interior of just those homes who have
Well, we
had
want the
sales?
most accurate information that we can get on those sale properties. So these are properties that typically have sold within the last 3 years.
So you're saying within the last 3 years, as opposed to since 2011?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going back too far. You want the
And
more
why-
recent sales.
And why, if there were improvements, because the improvements would be listed in the building department and hopefully Denise,
Captured in
captured in
inventory.
the assessor's office.
Well, I'm not sure you can answer that.
So sometimes property owners forget to take out building permits. And so therefore, that's why we're inspecting the properties that have sold. There may be an occasion where if we have,
So it's not that you're inspecting the properties that have gotten building permits, et cetera, but the ones that have sold, so that you can get an accurate estimate of exactly what is in there. And perhaps if some improvements were not captured by the assessor, they would be captured in the assessment.
in the 2020
In the
assessment,
2020
correct?
assessment.
Well, that would be a bonus. But really, having the best sales data that you can get
The sales data is only relevant if you're comparing properties that are reasonably comparable.
That's what we're doing.
That's right, what we're doing. You know, the comparison is, it's based on, if you're looking for the same style house, roughly the same age, so ranches are compared to ranches, raised ranches to raised ranches, old styles to old styles. That's the idea.
I'm getting at that because I want the people seeing this video and through word of mouth to understand that as far as residential properties are concerned, and this does not apply to commercial properties, as far as residential properties are concerned, this will be not an intrusive reassessment.
Correct.
Probably comparatively few properties will need an interior inspection, correct?
And of course, I think you cold call on a property that happened to have sold, the owner has the right to deny you entry.
That's correct.
We can't compel entry.
Dan had a question. Dan?
Can I just the board a second? As Steve was saying, the whole basis for the revalue, your benchmark are your sales. So getting those right
Residential property.
for residential properties, the benchmark is your sales, and everything is built off of that. All of the models are built off of that, because while all of this looks like statistics, it's not really statistics. Statistics are what's on the back of a baseball card. This is probability. So what is the probability that your house is going to sell for $500,000 or $700,000? That's what the model determines, and it uses for that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, it uses sales as the benchmark. That's why they're looking to verify to make sure that they have the best information about the sales.
It's the same approach that's used by the fee appraiser on a Fannie Mae form. It's in mass appraisal. It's different in that what the fee appraiser does when he adjusts sales prices, we do by a different methodology. We aggregate all of those adjustments in one number and use that one number as the basis for adjusting sales prices. Every property has that one number. It happens to be called a regression model. But we've just taken all of those differences, put them in one number. We compare those two numbers to one another. The differences applied to the sale price. In effect, it's the same thing as adjusting all of the multiple lines that you'll see in a Fannie Mae appraisal.
Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor, we are trying to make this as least invasive to property owners as we possibly can. So answer that question.
John, do you have anything you want to add?
I think it's been said pretty well, but I would just want to emphasize again, the reason that Tyler is going to be looking at the sales is since the sales are going to be used as the basis for developing the model, it's extremely important that the correct information, the correct inventory for those sales is in place. If it's not, the model, even though the model is not the sole means of valuation for residential property, as Steve and Edie said, there's also going to be comparable sales, which is a very important approach. But for purposes of developing that base model, you really want to make sure the data for the sales is as accurate as it can be.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question about the grievance process and the dates, because you had mentioned that the informal grievance process will begin March 1st, but the change notices won't come out until June 1st. So how can residents...
Thank you for clarifying that. So what's going to happen is the first notification, other than these meetings and emails and things, will be a data mailer with inventory. And that will come out the third or fourth quarter of this year. And that we are asking residents to verify whether the inventory that we have on file is correct or not. Either way, whether, like Steve said, whether it's correct or not, please sign it and send it back so we can log that into our system. So that's the first. The notices will be mailed, the new values will be mailed March 1st, day or two either side. And that's when the residents will have the ability to meet with Tyler Technologies, to review their assessments, to ask questions, to, go through the whole process, whatever they need to do from March 1st. If an assessment has changed by March 1st to June 1st, any assessment changes, those property owners will be notified again by June 1st. If not, the values that were sent out or being sent out March 1st will be the tentative assessments. On June 1st, they become the tentative assessments officially for 2020, at which point, from June 1st to the third Tuesday in June, they have the right for a formal appeal process in front of the Board of Assessment Review, just as it has been in the past. I don't believe we're going to mail June 1st if we mail them in March, unless the assessments have changed between March 1st and June 1st. It's a little bit different, so.
We're going to have to make sure everybody knows what the dates are, because basically, prior to June 1st, this process is in the hands of Tyler Technologies. After June 1st, it reverts back to the formal town process, the assessor, Board of Assessment review, just as it always has forever.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. And those dates and the definitions and descriptions of those dates will be on the website.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
And one more question. For those informal grievances, which are to take place between March 1st and June, is the town going to be involved at all, or is this entirely a Tyler operation?
This is entirely a Tyler operation until June 1st.
Then the key is turned.
Then the key is turned. Thank you.
Edie, I want to thank all of you. Edie, Denise, Steve, John, Celine, Richard. Did I miss anybody? And of course our assessment.
Dan and Joan.
Dan, I was just going to say our assessment task force, Dan and Joan, and all the ones that weren't here. So thank you all very much. And we will be having additional meetings, most likely before the various other municipal boards. If the school boards want a presentation, that would occur as well. And that's up to, I don't expect that those presentations will be quite as detailed, but the idea from now going forward is to make everybody in the town of Rye aware that this process is ongoing, why it is occurring, and what people can expect. And so, as Steve said, and as Edie said, totally transparent. That's the whole idea.
And Gary, along those lines, I would suggest that maybe every few months we have an update from this group.
Sure.
Come before the town board and say, we're here, we're going here. This is the next step of the process. It was very detailed tonight in terms of long range, what's going to happen. But as we get closer to each deadline, I think it'd be good to come back and make a presentation.
Not everybody, but
no, just here's where we are in the process.
And this will all be on the website, and I hope that we can track it on the website so people can look. And if we can, if they're going to be in certain neighborhoods, be on the website. I'm in this area on these dates, or that area on those dates, so people can have an idea when the data collectors will be around. And of course, this is an entirely different process from the commercial. I would say entirely different because, yeah, we have to get the data from the commercial as well, but the residential process will be based on sales. There will be a minimal interior inspection that is not going to be so, correct, with the commercial. There will be a more substantial interior inspection, and value will be based, as it always has been, excuse me, on income and expense rather than sale price, although sale price could be a secondary determinative of the value.
We are directed as assessors, as appraisers, and as Tyler Technology Revaluation Corporations that we review all three methods of valuing properties and determine which is the best to use. Predominantly for commercial properties, it is income and expense. Residential, it's just like an appraisal.
But if a property sells on, on April of 2019 for a certain amount, that would be a very good indication of what that value is.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
John wants to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one little point to what you, Mr. Supervisor, was making, and Edie as well. When you're talking about income and expense for the purposes of determining commercial property valuation, I want to be very clear, it's only income and expense to the property. It has nothing to do with business income or expense. Right. Some people confuse that and they get very concerned that what they feel is privileged information is being requested. It's strictly income to the property rents, or what the property would rent
It's not,
for,
for example, a tenant could be in a property and making millions of dollars, and that has nothing to do with the value of that property if their rent is at a certain level. What counts is what the rent that they're paying is to the owner of the property.
Exactly. The rents and the expenses to maintain the property.
Except where the real estate is the business. Apartments, for instance. The income is the rent. Right.
All right. If there are other questions, thank you very much. We have a full meeting to get through. You're dismissed, unless you'd like to stay.
You really want us to come back, huh?
Don't worry. We'll handle it. Thank you again. All right. Adoption of minutes for February 12th. If there are no changes, objections, corrections, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Our next item is a public hearing regarding rules and regulations for parking at Rye Town Park, and we will be following that with the local law. Jeff, do you want to state briefly what this is about, please?
Sure. So the Rye Town Park Commission and through Gary's leadership is enacting a new parking system for the park goers at Rye Town Park. It will involve metered kiosks, pay stations, and we will be eliminating all the cash that is in years past that has exchanged between parking takers, parking attendants, and park goers. So park goers will now be interacting with kiosks and meters. And so
as well as telephones.
Right, there'll be an app on people's cell phones to pay for parking at Rye Town Park. So as a sort of a predicate authority for that, I felt it important to create a legal framework to enforce the parking rules and regulations that we're enacting there. So if we're going to have metered parking and people are going to drive in without paying upon entry, there's going to be some people who neglect to pay purposefully or not, or overstay. And so there's going to be a fine system, parking tickets essentially. And so this local law enacts the framework and the legal basis for writing the tickets. And it empowers our town constables to issue those tickets, and it makes the tickets returnable to Rye Town Court. And the reason why we're doing this and not the Rye Town Park Commission is that this is town jurisdiction.
Thank you. So we are having since it's a local law, we are having a public hearing. So I'd like a motion and second to open the public hearing.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Please call the roll, Deb. Pardon me, Hope. Debbie was last meeting. Hope is this meeting.
Councilperson Lindsay Jackson.
Yes.
Councilperson Thomas Hardy.
Yes.
Councilperson Jill Axelrod.
Yes.
Councilperson Anthony Baxter.
Yes.
And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Yes. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I have something to say. I think it's important in the context of Jeff's introduction that we are introducing pay stations and mobile apps, and we are changing the method by which park goers pay cash to cashiers at Rye Town Park. That does not mean we are not hiring cashiers. We are hiring cashiers this year.
But we're not calling them cashiers.
We are not. Our cashiers are going to become park attendants. They will be cross-trained to help assist the park rangers in the safe flow of traffic when needed. And they will be our ambassadors. They will be our Rye Town Park ambassadors. And they will be fanned out around the park and the parking area to assist park goers in understanding the new system and to assist in transactions with either the pay stations or the mobile apps as needed.
Great. Thank you. We'll consider that a comment from a member of the public. Thank you, Debbie. With that, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Jackson.
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi.
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod.
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter.
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Now we have a resolution establishing the parking fees for what is now known as the Rye Town Park Parking Meter District. And even though there are no so-called parking meters, there will be 3 kiosks and the phone app. And to amplify on what Deb just alluded to, the phone app is going to be very similar to the app that is used, for example, at the Westchester train station. People go to park, they can park via their phone, and a lot of other jurisdictions use that. And the parking kiosks will be very similar to those used also at the train stations, but more familiarly on the streets of Westchester, on the streets of Rye, on the streets of White Plains, etc. So, and in the malls. So the system will be very familiar to anybody who's ever parked at a parking lot where you have to pay. What is eliminated is going to the gate and stopping and paying an attendant with a credit card or cash and then parking your car. So it should be much more efficient. And as Debbie alluded to, if you can pay by cash, but you'll be paying at a kiosk, and that money will be taken from the kiosk by a bonded person to the bank. So that's the major difference. And as Jeff said, people may overstay their time, and so there will be a penalty schedule, and people will be able to pay their tickets via phone and via credit, just like most jurisdictions do in the 20th century and 21st century. And we're updating it. And this, by the way, the Rye Town Court already handles the parking tickets for the village of Rybrook, and it's a possibility that they may be upgrading to this type of a system as well. I've already had discussions with the police chief about that. So that's what this is all about. And let me have a motion and a second.
I just have one question. For the timing, how are you scheduling the fee rates? Have you scheduled how you're gonna charge? Are you charging by a half hour, an hour?
Yes. We have.
Yes.
We have.
Okay.
Actually, I believe it's in 4-hour blocks and permanent. Why don't you explain?
Park goers will have the choice. We have a couple of different schedules.
Okay.
First of all, season permit holders, either resident or non-resident, will pay one rate, and that will be it for the season. They will not pay for parking again.
Okay.
They will just, their license plate will be recorded, and they will be able to park whenever. People who come for the day, if they are residents, can download an app and set up an account. They'll have to submit proof of residency that will be approved in the staff in the office. And once they've done that, every time they come to the park, they will be entitled to special resident-only rates,
Okay.
which are much lower than non-resident rates. Non-residents who come for the day will have a choice of a flat rate for the day, or if they prefer, they can buy a 4-hour time block, which will be a slightly less money.
Yep. That sounds good. Sounds good.
So do we know what those rates are?
We do. We just passed them at the commission meeting earlier this evening.
And what are they?
Well, hold on just a minute. Hold on.
I just think it's important for people to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. That's the reason.
And the
why
other
I-
question I had was, I'm assuming that the parking lot will be striped and numbered. Are these spaces going to be numbered?
No, I was going to get to that. They are not numbered. It is not based on spaces. It is based on license plates. So everybody who has a license plate will enter, either with their permit or on the daily. And there's also the ability to have more than one car. So if you're a 2-car family and one car is going to the beach one day and another car another day, you can register both. You will not be able to have both of them at the beach at the same time, because once one is locked in, the other one is locked out.
My other question is just the phone app. I'm not sure, I don't know how that works and how you can detect when a car is parked and you use the phone app to pay. How does the constable know that's...
We're going to have license plate readers that will be going around the park in a golf cart, reading all the license plates, and if a license plate has not paid or is overstayed, that's when
That's something,
will be issued.
that's something that's tallied at the end of the day? Or for like the phone app, I don't understand how...
The phone app, it's like a wallet.
Okay.
That may be the wrong analogy. When a resident arrives, they'll open up their phone app and they'll say, "I'm here."
And it
And
goes to
at
the
that
kiosk?
point, on their phone app, they don't have to go to the kiosk.
No, but it doesn't register at the kiosk, so they have an...
It will register in the database.
Okay.
And that will go directly to the license plate reader, so that
Okay.
the license plate reader will know that they're there and they've
Okay.
paid. If they don't go to their phone app and say, "I'm here,"
Here. They get the
they're
ticket.
going to get a ticket.
Okay.
And they'll be able to pay the ticket on the spot, by the way. They'll be able to go right into their phone app and pay the ticket right there.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions regarding this, and first off, I wanted to thank the Rye Town Park parking subcommittee that was set up and the work that they had put in along with our consultant, Rita Israelian, who did a lot of work determining the system that is going to be put in place and the mechanism by which to adopt this new system. The first question I have is the kiosks that are going to be there. Are they going to print out coffee and a plastic water bottle, but are they going to print paper receipts?
Yes.
Okay. Would we be able to have at least a recycling trash bin there? Because I noticed that in different areas, when you do have the kiosks that print receipts, they're kind of scattered all over the place on the ground.
That's a great idea. This receipt is going to be used by the beachgoers to present to the cashier and the park attendant in the beach booth, who is then going to mark that person as paid and give them a wristband, the same wristbands that we've been using for years.
So it'll be an exchange. People will hold on to their receipts till they get to the entrance booth and hand that receipt off?
Well, they're going to keep their receipt. They're going to present their receipt. It will be marked as present or used. At that point, we really haven't determined whether the cashier will keep that receipt or whether the person will
I
keep the
think what
receipt.
Lindsay's getting at is the cashier can keep the receipt so that it will be recycled, because
Yeah.
you're making an exchange, the receipt for the wristband.
That's true, unless the customer wants to keep the receipt.
Well, that's something else.
Or even if you just put a recycling bin there, so if they choose not to keep the receipt, they can just,
I think that is an obvious, brilliant idea.
like I said, I've just noticed these parking kiosks, and if you ever look, there's tons of paper on the ground. We're working hard to keep the park.
The other thing that should
As
happen
paid.
is that if you pay by your phone, then it should be something like what they do at Fandango when you go to the movies. Let's say you go in there and you're one car with a family of 5, right? You have 2 adults and 3 kids, and one kid is 14 and the other ones are free, they're under. You're going to be able to put in your phone, hopefully if this works correctly, you're paying for parking with this license plate, and you want a beach pass. Yes, I want a beach pass for 2 adults and 1 child, and then it'll register like they do in the movies. And when you go to the park attendant, then you can show your phone,
And they can scan it.
and they can scan it and say, okay, now you admit, 3 paid and 2 kids.
Part of the programming that we're working out with the data integrator that we're working with is once that phone receipt is presented, it will be marked as in, and it won't be able to be used again that day. So it's a one-time receipt, even if it's a visual.
And then I guess the other question I had was regarding these tickets will go through the Rye Town Port. Are they aware of this?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so they are aware, because there's obviously going to be...
We have had discussions.
Okay.
Do you have the locations where you're putting it? Because you got the handicap parking.
Yes.
And you got,
Yes.
that's all been,
Yes.
So it would take me a while to bring it up.
yeah, that's all right, but
No, I think
The locations are at the end of the circle on the south
Okay.
end at the booth, which will enable people with disabilities to walk along completely flat land from the parking lot directly there. There'll be another pay station right inside the arched entrance next to the water fountain in
Yep.
the tower building. And there'll be the third is on the little island, which will be a slightly larger island in front of the bathhouse.
Good.
And I just have one more follow-up question. I apologize, but the revenue from the tickets, will that in turn go to the park? Would that go to the town? And how does that work?
Jeff, you want to handle that one?
The revenue from the parking tickets, it's my anticipation that at some point, the revenue makes its way back to the town. Now, the court has to account for all these fines, and there's a structure in place and a procedure in place that the court has to get audited. But this is a topic of continuing discussion that the supervisor in the court is having. But it's my expectation that, frankly, I don't think there's going to be that many tickets issued, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Jeff, I think it's good. I think that the fines will be distributed as they are now, probably to the Rye Town Park Commission, just as fines issued by the Rybrook Police Department for overnight parking, I guess, go to the Village of Rybrook. So however it works with the Village of Rybrook is probably how it's going to work with the Rye Town Park Commission.
So the question was asked what the fees are. Would you like to know? Sure. So the Resident permits for seniors will be $30, flat fee for the season, inclusive. For resident singles will be $150. For resident families and is $225. And annual parking only, so no beach at all, is $125.
And those are one-time fees.
Those are one-time fees. I would note they are going up.
Those are the up.
Those are the up, that's it. The last increase for seniors and for singles, resident singles, was in 2010. And the last increase for resident families was in 2013. So the way the structure used to be, people would buy these permits, but then every time they drove through into the parking lot, they had to pay more money. Basically $4 each time they drove in. That's done, that's over. Once they have a season permit, they just drive in and park. For non-resident permit holders, the fee will be $125 for seniors, $350 for non-resident singles, and $450 for non-resident families. The open water swim permit is the same. It will be $50, same as last year. And for non-permit holder residents, in other words, a resident who does not want to buy a season permit, the driver of a car will get $20 per person inclusive on weekdays, and $25 inclusive on weekends. And then for every additional person in the car, they'll be $10 each if they're residents. They'll also have the option of... Correct. Yes, they're not charged for riding into the parking lot. Or they have a choice of a 4-hour time block, if they prefer, for, I think it's $20. Hold on. I think it's 15. And then on the weekends, by the way, it's from 7 p.m. to close, it's free for residents. On the weekends, again, $25 per person inclusive for parking and beach for the driver, and then for every additional non-resident, it'll be $15. For non-permit holder, non-residents, it's a higher level. So they'll have from all day until 7 p.m., it's $25 flat fee for parking, $10 in the evening from 7 p.m. to close, and then to get on the beach is $15 per person. On the weekends, there'll be a $35 flat fee to park all day, or if they come in after 7 p.m., $10 flat fee, and then $20 per person to get on the beach.
I just have one more question. What happens when somebody rents the pavilion and they want to come and park? When they come and park, are they going to have to pay a fee?
Well,
or is that going to be, or are they going to somehow, whoever rents it, are they going to get a discount for free parking?
It's been the pattern when a host rents the pavilion, they have a choice. They can pay for their guests' parking, or they can have their guests pay for their own parking. There will be a validation code that is created for those hosts.
For just that one event?
And the parking is discounted.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
This has been thought through.
No,
I don't know exactly how well it'll work. We're hoping it's going to work really well. But it's been thought through a great deal. And you can also get more information if you look at the video of the Rye Town Park Commission meeting that we had immediately prior. We had a parking presentation on this very subject.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's going to be a big improvement for what's going on now, how it's done now. I think it's going to be worth the money.
Thank you. Jeff, I have a question. We have two documents, and I'm not sure which to do first and why we have to do both. One is local law number 1. Oh, We close the public hearing.
We didn't.
We didn't have to move this.
One is local law number 1, and the other one is a resolution establishing the parking fees.
Well,
Should we vote on both of these?
yes, because we're the authority, the law is giving us the authority to impose these fees and fines. So I want to enact the law, which is the predicate authority for imposing the fees and fines. So I would vote on both of them.
You want us to vote on both?
This is, by the way, this structure, this framework is very similar to the way the city of Rye does it. I did not reinvent the wheel.
There was a reference, I think, in the local law to the resolution. Let's vote on local law number 1.
Could I ask one more quick question?
Of course.
The answer can be quick too. How are we paying for the kiosks?
We are entering into a contract, and that is,
We're licensing the kiosks and the permit system. It's a 3-year license, and in year 4, we buy it for $1.
Oh, great.
The pro forma that we developed with let's be clear, the heavy lifting of the pro forma was done by the systems integrator that sells this stuff, predicted that we would pay for the system in about a month or a month and a half. We're budgeting for half that, just to be conservative. And it's coming out of capital. So
that's not the Town of Rye budget.
correct, that's Rye
It's the
Town
Rye
Park's
Town Park
budget.
Commission budget, not our budget.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
So let us move the resolution passing local law number 1. I have a motion and a second for that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
If there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jackson,
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes, thank you. And the next item is a resolution establishing parking fees for the Rye Town Park parking meter district. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, please.
So just one point of clarification. It says in here, see attached Schedule A. I didn't see.
It should be attached, it was
Okay.
attached today.
And Debbie just went through
On the
it?
website.
Yeah, Debbie went through it. I just wanted to make sure it's on the
Yeah,
website.
it's on the
in case people-
website.
Okay, fine,
Yeah.
fine.
Thank you, Tony. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Jackson,
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. This section now is comments from the public on non-agenda items. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we shall move on to our resolutions. First one is a resolution regarding donation to American Legion and Memorial Day ceremonies. We do this every year. And I'm going to move quickly through these. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Resolution proposing an amendment to Section 806 of the Town of Rye Personnel Manual regarding medical benefits. We had discussed this as a personnel matter earlier at the last meeting. The proposed amendments to Section 806 regarding medical benefits follows the discussion that we all had agreed on. Is there any further discussion? Does anybody need further explanation? Debbie, you want to just give a very brief explanation of what this is?
Yeah, there are two primary aspects to this amendment. One of them has to do with part-time employees who are not covered by benefits. They're not entitled to benefits according to the town law. And that's a fairly universal
Not
or
the
very
town,
wide.
not the town law, the town personnel law.
I'm sorry, thank you, town personnel policy. So what this amendment will do is enable part-time employees to participate in the town's medical, vision, and dental healthcare policies at a 100% reimbursement to the town. In other words, this will have zero impact on the town's budget, but it may help our employees if they wish to take advantage of our benefits.
Thank you.
The second aspect of this amendment is for retirees. Up until now, the retirees have also not been entitled to dental or vision benefits. If they vested, if they worked at least 10 years, to make a long story short, they were entitled to medical benefits, but not dental and vision. Now, if they wish to buy in for vision and dental, they can do so. However, the employees who are currently, retirees, who currently are receiving medical, dental, or vision benefits, they are grandfathered in, so that has no impact on them whatsoever. But going forward, that will be the
And
policy.
that will be at no cost to the town.
Correct, at no cost to the town.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
If there are no further discussion, please call the roll. Vote.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Next, two items are resolutions regarding tax cert cases. Jeff, you want to talk about this? Let me have a motion in a second, please, first, then we'll discuss.
I'll make a motion.
This is on 61 Fox Island.
I'll second.
Discussion, please, Jeff.
The first one this involves a residential building in Portchester known as the Lighthouse. And there's really not that much to say other than...
This
He's
is
doing one term, the 120 pro.
Yeah.
Sorry?
That's 61 Fox Island.
Oh, I'm sorry, 61 Fox Island. Denise, do you want to take that one?
Handing it off, aren't you?
Well,
That's okay.
this was Dan's piece.
That's okay.
All right.
So the 61 Fox Island at some point was subdivided into two lots. And this case existed for a long time, came to our attention, and we were assessing the property with a dwelling on it and had no dwelling on it. So basically the values reverted to the land value. Once I discovered that in 2017, I corrected the assessment roll, and I talked to Dan earlier and mentioned to him, and also sent him an email earlier, that for 2017, that value was already adjusted to 116.2. So I don't know if that's part of the final, it shouldn't be a part of the final settlement. He'll have to address that with the petitioner's attorney to determine what's going to go in the consent judgment, but it shouldn't be a part of that settlement.
Well, the corrected AV for 2017 is 110,600. Is that not correct?
That's not correct either. That's not the land value that we have on record. Neither is the 248,300.
Well, then we cannot pass this until the numbers are correct. We
Okay.
can't pass a resolution
Table.
and then have a settlement in
Bring it
court
back.
that's different. Am I
Right.
correct?
That's fine.
All right.
Table it. It can wait till next month.
The next one is for North Pearl Street.
So this building is a residential building, a relatively new construction, a residential building in Portchester. It's 2 years at issue. It's a relatively minor tax cert matter. The judgment here that it was better to settle them now, 2017 and 2018, than let this sort of fester. There was an issue with regard to an appraisal that was done for construction purposes versus an appraisal that potentially could have been done now at great expense to the town. We just felt it was in the town's best interest to settle these 2 years and basically get rid of this case.
I like settling 2 years rather than 7 years. Thank you. May I have a motion and a second on this one, please?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
If there are no further discussions, may we call the roll, Madam Clerk? Thank you.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Budget modifications and transfers. This is done periodically in every municipality. Dave, do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah.
Not a lot. Just a little.
This is the second round of the budget modifications for the 2018 budget. The first time we did it was in November of 18. So this is the final budget modifications for 18, which will mark the budget as final for the audit report as well. So in that line too, the auditors were in at the end of February. Field work was done. All information was presented to the auditors. So we're expecting in the next few weeks to have draft reports, and we're going to follow up with them tomorrow to see where they are and their open items. But this will make the budget final. And just so you know, the appropriations of the budget has not changed overall. It stays the same. And these are basically adjustments to budget line items pretty much within the same department.
Right.
So there's no impact. One budget line item may be over, one may be under, and we just start reclassing it. We're in line with the budget.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Make the motion.
Second.
No further discussion, please call the roll. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. The next item is declaration of official intent. And I had sent an email earlier regarding this to clarify. As most of you on the council are aware, and the public is aware, Rye Town Park is undergoing substantial capital work. The immediate work being undertaken is repair of the seawall, which fell down in Superstorm Sandy in 2012. Repair of the bathhouse roof, or I should say replacement of the bathhouse roof, and the installation of handicap accessible ramps. Actually, the reconstruction of our current ramps to be handicap accessible. All of these have received grant monies either from the federal government or from the state and or from the county. I shouldn't say have received, we have been awarded money in each of those situations. However, we are required to pay the costs up front and then get reimbursed. Also, the money is, the grant money does not fully cover the costs. In the case of FEMA, it's a 90%, which is a great reimbursement, but the others are substantially less, actually based on the cost, probably anywhere to 50%. So we are required to come up with the money, and at some point, we may issue bonds to do that. We don't have to. We can take it out of reserves. That's a decision to be made. But if we are to, Dave, you correct me if I'm saying this wrong, okay? In order to bond for work already done, for example, the seawall is going to commence hopefully shortly, and we're going to be paying for it. In order to pay for that, and then if we issue bonds later, we have to pass this declaration of intent that this money will be reimbursed by bonds. Otherwise, for example, you can't make an expenditure today and then issue bonds in 5 years and say, I'm paying for that. So this has to be done systematically. And this resolution was prepared by our bond counsel, and we hopefully will enact it by resolution, and that will take care of step one. Have I said that correctly? Yes. Thank you. That being said, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the,
Sorry, you can take it. I'll second.
Oh, you haven't made any motions today. You got to take this one.
go ahead, make the motion.
So moved, Mr. Supervisor.
I'll second it.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. The next resolution is regarding the summer internship program. Debbie, would you like to explain this, and then we can vote on it?
Yes. One of the treats of our summer is that we get a chance to provide some job preparation training to young people in the town of Rye, and then assist organizations throughout the community, nonprofit and for-profit, and in fact, the town government and usually the Village of Portchester government, sometimes in Merrimack, all participate in providing work opportunities for these young people to apply some of the skills that they've learned. This has been going on for, I don't know, actually I don't know how long, but I'm going to guess probably 2010. And so this has become quite an established program, and this year our Deputy Clerk, Ava Garces, will be joining us in helping to administer this program. So that's why this is back on the budget, so that we can begin the recruitment process.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second? Oh, by the way, how many did we have last year?
15 last year.
15, so we're providing, and because we only had provided, I recall, provided for 12 and went to 15, we had an increase, right? Right. So this provides for 15 now. Okay, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Jackson?
An enthusiastic yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Our last resolution is the renewal of the Sullivan data contract. Debbie, briefly, what is this about? Why are we doing this? Sullivan data.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't. It's the Sullivan Data contract is an annual contract, and it expires the 1st of April, so it's time to renew. Sullivan Data is essentially our IT department. If there is ever a problem, they are at the other end of the phone. They monitor the health and effectiveness of our servers. They monitor the effectiveness of our desktop computers. They are helping us coordinate the transition to Laserfiche compatible scanners and printers as needed. So this is their contract that we are renewing.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
One question, is this amount the same as this year?
Exactly the same as last year, no increase.
It's been a few years that they didn't increase.
They had an increase last year.
Last year they did?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm thinking that's it. Please call the roll. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter?
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. I have to go back to a previous resolution. Debbie, I did not put the new number into the notice of intent.
Oh, boy.
In fact, this number is lower than the other one. I'd like a motion and a second to modify the previous resolution. The number in number 1 of the declaration of intent should be 1,922,702 rather than 1,931,250. Well, this is the correct number.
Motion to amend.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So I don't know how Tony has one number, our computer has another number, and this is the third number.
Because those were printed out earlier.
Let me just say, according to bond counsel, this is an estimate, and it doesn't mean that much. The number doesn't mean it, but this is the preferred number. Okay, thank you. Reports. The supervisor has no report. We don't usually have a supervisor report. Does the assessor have a report?
No, I just want to keep everything short for this evening. I just want to say that so far in working with Tyler, I think they're doing a terrific job, and Edie as well. So it's going along very nicely. If you have any questions at any point in time, feel free to call me up. We can answer your questions, or Tyler can answer your questions. They're really approachable, and they're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Davey, anything else? Nope, thank you. And now, Mr. John DiCrescenzo, Highway Superintendent. Welcome back, John.
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate you moving the meeting to Wednesday because I flew in today. If you had it yesterday, I wouldn't have been here. We have a couple of projects in the pipeline. Does anybody have any questions about the report?
No, just, I know the two main things are Hillside Avenue Bridge.
Yeah.
And I note that there's a misspelling.
Oh,
As you
jeez.
pointed out, seeker is S-E-Q-R, not S-E-C-R.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I must have been doing that. That was done.
It's okay. We all,
Yeah.
as you can see, we all make mistakes.
Yes.
As long as we correct them, we're good.
Yes. Yeah, that project is basically in a holding pattern because we're waiting for those final approvals and everything else can't fall into place until the environmentals are approved. So, speaking with Dan, he said everything is on schedule with the exception of the delay of that, and we have an extension, so we're not even going to be in violation of any of our grants or awards. So we're moving forward on that. And in April, we're intending on starting the maintenance on the Continental Manor footbridge.
That's the biggest bridge in town, right?
Yeah, I think it's about 12 feet.
And that's the seawall, or the wing wall, sorry.
No, that's
We're not doing
the
that
wood
yet.
the wood bridge behind the Continental View Apartments.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wooden bridge.
Yeah, we're just still in review of the other wing wall situation. I haven't had any updates. I don't know if Debbie has got any from the consultant.
I don't know.
No, so that's just, they're still reviewing all the assessments and all the inspections that they've done.
What I'm hoping for is that they're going to release, that we're going to be able to hold that together without any major repairs until the New Bridge, New York funding comes out. And then
Okay.
do a larger job. All right.
Everything else is status quo.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again.
Yes.
Mr. Receiver, do you have a report as submitted?
No report submitted.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, report submitted?
Submitted.
Thank you. And comments from council members? Anybody want to say anything about anything?
I'll just mention that we had a sustainability committee meeting last week before, and we are in the final stages of planning a spring cleanup day near Earth Day. It's going to be on May 11th. There will be a flyer that's put out. We'll publicize it once we have the final details. There are going to be locations in Rye Brook and in Portchester. And we've got individuals who represent both municipalities have been part of the process. So
That's good.
stay tuned for more information on that.
Good, good. What kind of areas will be cleaned up? Parks or other
We are
things?
looking at the area of, Debbie's going to help me with this, Bowman Avenue between...
Bowman Avenue, right near the Rye Ridge Shopping Center.
Right
And
between the
we're-
middle school and 287.
We're working very closely
Right-hand
with-
side.
The Bowman Avenue Dam.
Yes, yes.
So
Similar?
the Rye Brook Police will be helping us with
You know, the
traffic
Iranians
management.
control that dam.
Well, now it will be cleaner for them.
And in Portchester, we're looking at the marina lot, not the parking lot itself, but the grassy area in between Colony Grill and Bartaco.
Okay, good.
And then there's an area on North Ridge Street near the nursery school.
Yes,
That will
North Ridge
also
between the
be-
nursery school and Bridge Street School.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Anything, Joe?
No.
Sure.
Other than a motion to adjourn, I was
She just made a motion to...
fresh out of comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.